Well, good evening, everyone. How is everyone tonight? Good. It was nice to see such a good turnout tonight of community guests and students and former employees and trustees and a lot of folks that I hadn't seen in a long time, and a lot of folks that are still here and very active, and students that are making their way through the whole process. So this evening, welcome to the founding of the dream. We're going to cover the first 30 years of history of Muskegon Junior College. It's not an error there. Somebody came up to me and says, "You don't have the name of the place right." Well, can't change history. We were started as Muskegon Junior College. And we'll get into all the intricacies. We're going to spotlight some of the most wonderful people that believed in this dream. We're also going to highlight some of the people that didn't believe in this dream. We're going to talk about the development, the buildings, the people, the students, the administrators, the staff, and all of those things. If you don't know me, my name is George Maniatis. I am a history instructor here at the college and department chair of social sciences, and I also run a little entity called the Center for Experiential Learning, which really makes us kind of unique. And I'm joined here tonight by one of the best people I know, Emily Bush. Go ahead, Emily, talk.
Hi, I'm Emily Bush. I'm the archivist here at MCC. I'm also an adjunct librarian. It's been fun creating this PowerPoint and going through the history of the college's beginning with George to create this presentation.
So tonight, we have to give a little explanation because all historians come from a perspective. We're shaped by our experiences, our ideas, and we call that, unfortunately, use the word bias sometimes, the way that we view the world. And I really wanted to do this series. I proposed this as part of the Centennial activities because I am a strong advocate of education. Where in the world can you have 3 generations ago, immigrants come off a boat on Ellis Island, and one of my ancestors, my grandfather, never went a day to school. None of them ever went beyond elementary school. Yet, in 3 generations, I'm sitting here talking to you at one of the most incredible community colleges in the country. So that's my bias. That's my desire to get that word out. And I want to talk to you tonight about MCC. But before we talk about MCC, we got to talk about MJC. And we're going to get into that tonight. Emily, what drove you to this wonderful project?
Besides you asking me?
Forcing you, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe. I actually grew up in a household where I have a sister who's disabled. She has a mental disability. So getting a different perspective is what I grew up in. And my mom and my dad were very much pushing us to do that, especially with my sister. And neither of my parents grew up very rich, but they are very smart. My dad ended up going to Cornell University for both his undergrad and master's, so I'll give you an idea. So education was always a huge thing for us, but also to look at things in a different way due to how they grew up and how and my sister being there. So that led me to be like, hey, what's going on here? How did this change? And then, of course, George asking me to help out here.
Okay, so let's begin. That slide, can anybody recognize that building? Muskegon High School. Go Big Red. Okay, thank you, Janie Brooks. Yes, go Big Red. That school opened up in 1926. Was the pride and joy of Muskegon. It was the first real high school in Muskegon County. Dedicated high school. And it was designed with a vision, but that vision wasn't always complete. Yes, K through 12, and being the upper grades 9 through 12 in this building, that was a great feat. Tremendous looking building. You couldn't probably erect anything close to that today. So it was the pride and joy of our community. But we're going to talk about that third floor because that's going to be our focal point. So why don't we advance on, if we could.
There we go.
One of the things that struck us, if you look at that photograph, what do you notice there? 12-year-old, not even 12. I think he was probably about 6 or 7 years old, working barefoot on a bobbin machine in a textile mill. We have to remember that this is the 1870s, 1880s. Child labor is very prevalent. And it will take a political movement in the United States, the progressive movement, to finally say, we can't have kids working in factories like this 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Yet that was the norm, And to think that our community college, which is founded in 1926, that's not even 40 years. So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at an industrial revolution that is propelling Americans. They're finally, many of them, getting a paycheck every week, which is unique because if you were in agriculture, you only got a paycheck once a year, harvest time, or twice a year if you were in the South, because you might have had 2 crops. But this is now going to be the norm. You have people with rising aspirations and incomes flocking to the cities, leaving rural areas. And there's a lot of different things happening to propel this desire for education. So, Emily, what else are we seeing here?
Well, here we see on the far left, sorry, I'm trying to orient myself, lumber. And then on the right, a more industrial, modern city. Muskegon started off as a lumbering town. We had tons of lumber here, so that was Muskegon.
And White Oak will build and refurnish a burnt Chicago. And they cut these trees down. Look at that. Look at the size of those trees. 150-year-old, 200-year-old trees in some cases. Forested it clean. Nothing left. Bad forestry practices. To the point where they depleted the forest around here. And Muskegon was forced to change its trajectory because we can't have sawmills and saloons and brothels in Lakeside anymore. That ain't going to work because the Sawyer class, the people that cut the wood, they're not here anymore. So, Muskegon 2.0. What is Muskegon 2.0? Well, it's industrialization, factories, foundries, etc. And if you were to walk in the 1920s and you were to look at Muskegon, what are you seeing? What are you seeing, Emily? Who are these companies?
Well, we have Norge, who created refrigerators and stoves and employed up to 4,000, so less than what we have here at the college. Brunswick. Does anyone know Brunswick? Yeah. What did they make? Bowling balls. Not just bowling balls, but the mechanism for the pins to be reset. That was made here in Muskegon. We had Continental Motors. Army Supply during the war, yep. Campbell Wyatt and Camden Foundries. The Shaw Walker office furniture. I know we still have some of their office furniture here at MCC because I have one of them filing cabinets in my office.
Don't tell them they're going to steal it. It's an antique.
Right? The SD Warner, which was now the Sappy Paper Company. So we still have some of our lumber roots going on there with paper. And then the Morton Box Crane, which was later Lift Tech.
Yeah. All of these are very large enterprises, employing hundreds, if not thousands of workers. Shaw Walker was one of the leading office furniture companies in the 1920s and 30s, making metal office furniture with wooden desktops and other accoutrements. And what also made Muskegon very desirable, its location on the water, on Lake Michigan. We're a port city, and that port was able to help us bring in materials because boats are efficient, good way of getting ore in and other things that will help our foundries in terms of coal and iron and such. But it also allowed us to be able to ship out across the lakes to Milwaukee, Chicago, and other ports where our goods would be desired. So Muskegon's a real hotsy-totsy town.
This photo here is courtesy of the Lakeshore Museum. The green circle right here, that is the Shaw Walker factory. And then directly behind it is...
C.W. Marsh, isn't it?
Yes, the C.W. Marsh. As you can see, they're still right on the lake, getting that shipping in and out, but there's not much around it. So there's some houses, but it's all industrialized all through here, which...
But why do we have these two buildings circled? What's their importance to this little founding story? Well, we're going to get back to that in just a second, because we need to have a discussion of what is a junior college, because that is not starting with us, obviously. It starts with a dream of two gentlemen, one called William Rainey Harper, who was the president of the University of Chicago, and another one being Stanley Brown, who was the school superintendent of the public schools of Joliet, Illinois. And the picture you see there is Joliet High School. Still operational, still looks like that. I think they took down that big gaudy sign behind it, though. Everybody knew the Steelmen. But they were the first to start the concept of junior college. The idea is allowing students to be able to take their first 2 years in the community. In Joliet, because it was 60 miles away from Chicago, and it was on the rails and stuff, it would be a good feeder. Now, it was an industrial town. It had a lot of the similarities that we in Muskegon had. Steel mills, manufacturing, good load of agriculture because everything to the south was corn country and soybeans. So, or affordable, convenient transfer programs. Start local, start cheap, and move along to the University of Chicago, which was almost a very brand new institution. It was only founded in 1893. Joliet Junior College was founded in 1901. So this idea of cooperative leading into being able to develop future college graduates, because the idea that was prevailing at the time higher education is going to be a gateway to better things. And an emerging country like the United States needed trained and educated populations. Well, who is this young man?
This is John Dewey. He influenced the junior college, now community college curriculum back in 1901.
And he is the father of American public education. Originally a professor who had a stay at the University of Michigan, he would become one of the first college presidents at the U of C, University of Chicago. And he would lead a whole generation or inspire a whole generation of leaders to community colleges. You know, many times we see in the early community college movement, University of Chicago, Joliet Junior College, there is a connection. We even see that here in the early hirings at Muskegon Junior College. A lot of these people have that same pedigree. So, William Rainey Harper, Stanley Brown, early acolytes. University of Chicago, founded by probably either one of the most despised people of the 1800s or one of the most beloved people. John D. Rockefeller, Standard Oil, a robber baron in some textbooks, a philanthropist in other textbooks. And we might want to revile the ultra-rich, but they do have deep pockets and they can influence things if they so desire to work for good. Well, this model, what year was this from?
This was from 1920 something, I
Yeah.
believe. Something.
It was the early
Yeah.
1920s. We found this model was inspired by John Dewey. Well, if I took all the references off and I would have thrown that up there, what do you think, President Selman? Do you think this would have been something we would have discovered like last year? Well, look at it now. Come on, look at it.
I mean, there's some commonality there.
Yeah, obviously, right? This idea of theory to application to experience. We're hearing the same things today in the community college movement. You know, just don't tell us what degree you have. Tell us how you're going to use your degree. Where is it going? Well, this was the model that John Dewey put into place. So do, reflect, apply. And that's going to be a center point for every community college that's worth anything. And we're going to use that for our community college as kind of a hallmark in its sense. Well, 1923, Emily, what happened?
Well, most seventh graders wouldn't complete high school,
Yeah.
so they left.
74% of seventh graders will drop out of high school. That was a statistic that was collected here in Muskegon. Now, if we had a school system that only, 26% succeeded at, there would be clamors. There would be running the superintendent, the principal, the Board of Education right out of town. But 1926?
Not so much.
Why not?
Well, college was seen as an elitist institution, so most people weren't even going to strive to even go. They were just going to continue with what their parents were doing or move on to something that was equal with what their parents were doing. So they weren't going to better themselves because they didn't see it that they could.
So with all these industrial jobs, why go to high school? Why finish? I can just go down to the local factory, I'll make a wage, and I'll be set. I'll be okay. Now, if we had a student that would tell us that today, we'd probably want to slap him, right? Come here, let me, Moonstruck, you know. Cher would be slapping Nicolas Cage, right? So there's a division within Muskegon itself in terms of schools of thought. And this is among the elite that are running the school board. Now, school boards, either that's the best job in the world or the most thankless job. I don't know. It could be both jobs, right? You have to make policies, and you have to lead a school system, and you have to get educators on board, and you have to get the populace on board, and everybody thinks that everybody's taking money, and, I don't know. Who knows? It's just crazy, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, here's a guy who's got a vision, but not the right one. You might recognize this man. L.C. Walker. Shaw Walker Furniture. He is the head of the Muskegon School Board. He doesn't want anything to do with a community college because people have been agitating with the building of the new high school. We need a community college. We got to keep up with Grand Rapids Community College because they founded theirs in 1914, and Muskegon can't be left behind. But Shaw Walker says, what are we going to waste our money on that for? We'd rather have a
Vocational school to teach factory workers to work in the factory. So why teach them anything else?
Well, why should we teach them anything else? According to Shaw Walker, who wrote a 1,000-word op-ed piece. 1,000 words. That's like 4 pages. I'm surprised the Muskegon Chronicle allowed him to write that. 4 pages about how we need to have a vocational training school to educate our young people so they learn vocational skills so they can work in Muskegon industry. And he was, you know who else like that? His neighbor, C.W. Marsh, who was also on the school board. Between Walker and Marsh, they influenced a good portion of the school board to think that we didn't need a community college. This is starting as early as 1923, when the plans are still on the books for the high school. Who is this guy? He looks serious.
He does. He looks very serious. This is Dr. John Vanderlaan, local, what we would call a PCP, so primary care physician in today's standard, and he was also on the school board, but he was in favor of bringing in a junior college to Muskegon to teach those students in the high school.
His background, he's an immigrant from the Netherlands. He's well respected. He's one of the top doctors at Hackley Hospital. And he has a different vision because he's encountered the power of education. It gave him enough ability to be able to rise to the level that he was at, and he felt everybody should have a chance.
And due to that, he pushed for a public vote. So the people of the city of Muskegon would tell them yes or no if we wanted a junior college here. And they did this in June 1926.
So,
we opened in September.
Yeah, there is no firm plan. They're just voting, yes, we want to open a college, and we want to open it in the fall. Now imagine you have 4 months to open a college. Those search committees must have really worked fast, huh?
And remember, there was no internet, so this was all done by newspaper and snail mail.
Yes. And this alliance between Dr. Vanderlaan, he found most of his support not from the educated, highbrow elite. He found it from the labor unions. Because those labor unions who were working in those factories didn't want their kids to be in those factories. And this was a resounding shot at L.C. Walker and C.W. Marsh. And in fact, C.W. Marsh, after this vote, will eventually resign from the school board. And L.C. Walker will take a lot of flack why he's still on the school board, because he's a resident of North Muskegon. So how do you get to be the president of the school board if you don't even live in town?
So this is one thing that we hear, is that we are a feeder school for the University of Michigan. We are in fact not. That's not why we were created. The University of Michigan was the only university in the state of Michigan when we were founded in 1926. The only one. The state of Michigan taxed the university to accreditate all junior colleges in the state for transferability of their courses. So they could transfer to University of Michigan, or they could transfer to any of the normal schools.
Normal schools? What do you mean? They had normal kids? You mean they gave them some kind of, sanity test or what?
Well, we would have to ask. Normal schools created teachers, and those were actually only 2-year programs as well. But they were teachers, so you would have to see if, maybe they were kind of crazy in a way. So what normal school would be in Mount Pleasant? Central. Kalamazoo? Ypsilanti? And Marquette. Okay. Who knows Michigan College of Agriculture and Applied Science? What about Michigan College of Mining and Technology? Michigan Tech, yeah. So we weren't a feeder school for U of M. They were the only university at the time in the state. As for the colors of why we are similar, I have no clue. I have not found anything in the archives that state why our colors are the way they are, but we're not the only ones. Grand Rapids, GRCC is also the same colors, so I do not know. But we were not a feeder school for U of M.
So yeah, that displaces a rumor that we hear often, that we were founded as a feeder school. That's not true, but it's always good to think that. It's always good to think that. Okay. So, vote in June. On September 1st, 1926, on the 3rd floor of the newly opened high school, Muskegon Junior College gets its start. Just imagine, 4 months to pull it all together. It must have been chaotic. And who are the people that we're targeting? We're targeting all of Muskegon County, all of Grand Haven, Newaygo County, Oceana?
No, it was actually just for the residents of the city of Muskegon. So only those in the city themselves were considered in district. We are part of the city of Muskegon Public School District. So none of the outside ones were considered in district just yet.
And they would be eventually charged out of district if you lived in places like Fruitport or the township of Norton Shores. It was not a city at that time. It was just a bunch of farms. Roosevelt Park did not exist. That came after World War II. So we're talking about a city, the city of Muskegon. And here was the what? What is this stuff?
So we thankfully have some photos of what the 3rd floor in the public school system looked like when it started. So they had their own study room up in the top. Just looks like a regular classroom, of course. This is their office. They had one tiny office on the 3rd floor.
Lean administration.
And then,
Yeah, very lean. Yeah, we'll tell you.
and then this is the third floor hall, which just looks like a high school. But that's the college. And then the Lido Theater, which they did share with the high school. So
There you go.
there you go. And there was only one staircase that led up to the third floor. So you had one staircase to go up to go to college.
Pretty exclusive, eh? You made it to the third floor of your high school.
This was enough space for the junior colleges. Only 62 students began in 1926. Only 62.
Yeah, well, for 4 months, it was a heck of a recruitment job. All righty. So what did we offer in the first degrees?
We had preparatory and terminal. So preparatory was, the pre-stuff. So pre-medical, pharmacy, engineering, ones that you would take to transfer to another college or University of Michigan. Then we had the terminal, the ones that were end-all. So very basic business courses, pretty much. Secretarial, accounting, teachers as well. So not the main teachers, but the assistant teachers they would train here.
Right, so there's a distinct lack of any tech or vocational education here at all. So where did we, such a diverse population of degrees, where are we doing all this instruction? Clearly not in that little study room.
Not in the study room. There were other classrooms on the third floor. Some of them were taught there. Others were taught at off-site locations. So we were taught, especially for the physical education courses, at the YMCA and the YWCA, which, if anyone knows where those used to be, they're not close to the senior high school.
Yeah, and the YWCA still exists, but I think it's a condo building now with a pool in it.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct? Right across from the Muskegon Art Museum. Okay. Wish we could share a better picture with you, but there isn't.
We don't really have early photos of our faculty, unfortunately. So our faculty and administration was actually small. We had a director or a dean, and they also taught. So it wasn't just the director of the college. They also taught courses. We had one clerical support, and custodial was shared with the high school. As George said earlier, our faculty did come from well-placed areas, including the University of Chicago, the University of Michigan, and the University of Wisconsin.
How many were there?
13 faculty, and that includes the director as part of that faculty, and then of course the one clerical. So 13, just 13. And some of them were only part-time, not full-time faculty.
Yeah, wow.
Very small.
So lean, mean, and definitely hitting the ground teaching. Okay, well, this is kind of where we have a little problem.
Our first president is Samuel Brooks. He was here for 1 year, just 1 year. He got his degree at Ohio State University, and he left underneath a scandal.
What was this scandal?
He liked to step out on his wife.
How do we know that? Come on. That sounds kind of scurrious. That's innuendo, isn't it?
Well, his car had curtains on it.
You mean he had a shag wagon?
He had a shag wagon.
Oh my gosh.
And he was seen multiple times throughout the community, throughout the city, with non-wife in the car with him. So he left. Our next president that came in is D.R. Henry. He wasn't here for very long, but he was here at the beginning of a tumultuous time of the Great Depression. He came to us from Joliet Junior College. He was the director of measurements there.
First IR person, I imagine, or assessment person, early assessment person.
So a great person to have coming from the first junior college in the country. He was our second one here.
And stable, too, which was good, because obviously we can't have innuendo and rumor surrounding our nice new school with a director that's not doing appropriate things.
It's also the reason why we don't have a great photo of him.
You think that might have been the lineup picture?
Maybe. Our next president was Alan G. Albright. He's also the longest serving president at Muskegon Junior College. He was here for 27 years. He was liked by everyone, students, faculty, administrators, the public, everyone. To give you an idea, he was asked to write a section in the bay window, a column, if you may, twice. The first one was called From the Inner Sanctum, which ran from December 1939 to May 1940. And then the second time, it was called From the Desk of Albright, which ran from October 1941 until he left in March 1958.
Everybody loved him. They called him AG. And AG, I think, was shaped by a lot of experiences. When he first took the job, he took it in the heart of the Depression. And obviously, the country's in turmoil. Decisions have to be made. Budgets are lean and mean. There's no money. And he's going to have to make some decisions about staffing. So he releases one faculty member, riffs them. And this faculty member losing their job in the Depression, that must have been depressing enough, but this faculty member committed suicide, wrote a rather detailed note. And AG was very hurt by that whole thing, that he had to make a decision that ultimately led to somebody's demise, because 1930, when this was going on, there is no unemployment insurance. You're hitting the road. And prospects for jobs are not very great. So based on that, I think he became a more compassionate, understanding, hands-on, be seen, be understood leader. And I think that's important. That's what led to his great admiration and also his long tenure. He loved doing the job. And there's every evidence of it in the correspondence and the way he was treated by both community and also the students and faculty.
He had the faculty and students over to his house, and if it wasn't him, then it was his wife inviting them over for tea.
Well, look at all this.
Hold on.
You beggars of Paris, some you know the rabble of low degree. King Louis.
Does anyone recognize that tune? No? That's actually what our school song is written to. So the Song of the Vagabond was written by two students, Winston Hathaway and Marvin, I'm going to butcher his last name.
Godelski.
Yes.
Nice Polish name. Come on now.
So the students came in and they were definitely gung-ho about the junior college. They created it in 1926. The students, when they did come in, they were active throughout the 20s and 30s. They did Roof Raisers, which is a variety show that took place throughout the 20s and into the early 30s.
Roof raisers? What's a roof raiser? You mean our roof wasn't very secure in the high school?
That would be bad with the amount of snow we get. But it's a variety show. They did dance acts, one-act plays, music, you name it, they did it, pretty much, at least what was considered normal back in the 1920s. They also had music, so chorus and orchestra, no band at this point. The chorus and orchestras, their concerts would take place in churches. They didn't take place in the auditorium, they didn't take place in the little theater, it was churches throughout the city that they did, which brought the college into the public more and for the public to attend what the students were doing. They also had student clubs, like any university, we had them here too. They had student council, which would be considered the student government today. They had women's league, men's union, Phi Theta Kappa. We had the Omega chapter, which is the honor society for community colleges. Shouts and Murmurs, which is different from Roof Raisers, but that was the theater club. It was called. Then Le Forum Français, French club. The Inquisition.
Uh-oh, they were torturing students. I knew it. Don't know your homework? Come step into my office. Water torture.
Not students, but they did discuss the Spanish Inquisition, debated about it, and the people there. They had the debating club and, of course, journalism club, for which if they did not have that, we wouldn't have the bay window, and we wouldn't have all of this great information at our fingertips today. So, these are photos of the different activities that students did. So we have a play, the chorus in a church, of course, one of the acts for our roof raisers, the group for a roof raiser, another chorus concert in a church, of course, dancers, and they do occasionally have a concert in the auditorium, but this is the larger auditorium. They wasn't just clubs and student clubs, they also have athletics. So what you would normally find at a college: football, swimming, cross country, basketball, tennis, and golf. Michigan Junior College Athletic Conference we did become a part of in 1930.
And it was a statewide conference. It wasn't a national like we have today, the NJCAA. Mm-hmm. But football for 2 years?
2 years.
Why?
Don't know.
Maybe
but we had football.
Maybe the picture tells us a lot of the problem.
Probably.
Not too many people went out.
The football picture on the right is from 1927, and the one on the left is from 1928. So it's in the old Hackley Stadium, as you can tell by the bleachers behind them. Down below, on the two ends, are the swim team. Only men had a swim team during this time. There was no women's swim team. And then, of course, in the middle is tennis, but to me they look like golf players with how their socks are.
They look pretty sober looking, don't they? I'm a little worried. Must have been bad to be on the tennis team or something. I don't know.
Right?
Well, you're a freshman at MJC. What could you expect? Well, if you're a man, what do you have to wear?
Green beanies.
This is part of the hazing ritual. And women, they tried to do something with them.
They tried to make the women wear green ankle socks, but come on, ladies, we're like, nope, not happening. So they didn't wear them.
So the men were only the ones being picked on. Well, part of the hazing ritual also had some other things, like guys being abducted and driven out to the causeway, and then they would take their clothes and force them to walk home naked. There was a case of several of these people being dumped in the lake, and the sheriff had to come see the president to suggest that that's probably not a good thing since they were saving people from drowning. And then they had this other little ritual.
They had a tug-of-war between the freshmen and the sophomores at the Mona Lake Channel. This one, they did get a picture of. This took place in 1930. As you can see, most of the men are in dress pants, which was normal wear for them, and their undershirts. There's a guy even off to the side here in a complete suit.
Maybe it was
Yep.
AG probably trying to supervise them from killing themselves or something. I don't know. I would be a little worried anytime these kids were getting together.
There is instances of broken ribs and other broken bones, not just from the tug of war, but the other hazing rituals as well. It's another shot of the tug of war that took place across the channel. As you can see, it is small enough where they could do it and shallow enough as well. This did go away for a number of years, but it does come back in the 1960s. But to see those pictures, you're going to have to come to the second lecture.
Well, look at this lovely title. Blue Sky, Roses, and a Bright Future, ? Or not? Well, if we look at that timeline, it looks pretty positive, right? Founded in 1926. Our first seal, look at that. Is that Aladdin's lamp or something, or what? Rub the lamp and out comes what?
Knowledge, actually.
Ah, and in the vapor is Muskegon Community College. Who put that together?
That was created by H.R. Terryberry. Gotta love that name, Terryberry. He created it in 1926, but it wasn't released until 1927 due to money. Our first graduating class took place in June 1928, 2 years, of course, after we opened. We were accredited by the North Central Association, which is now the HLC, in 1929. But our first catalog and student handbook was not printed and handed out to students until 1930.
So sign up for a college, you don't have any recruitment literature. Just take our word for it, we teach courses.
Pretty much. Pretty much everyone took, it was a very basic courses. These are the ones you took. These are the times you have no say. You don't have a choice of when they were taken or how many they were given. But usually it was like English, and that's the only English course for that semester, so you better be in it. And then in 1931, an activity fee was first required for students to pay.
Well, God forbid you raise the tuition during the recession or depression. That wouldn't be very popular.
No.
Well, okay, well, this looks okay, but what's not so okay? Unfortunately, Western Michigan in the 1920s had a very large contingent of Ku Klux Klan. And in 1925, 3,000 Klan marched in Grand Rapids, big Klan rally. There was cells of the Klan in Muskegon. There was cells of the Klan up in Oceana and Newaygo counties. And they weren't running under the radar. They're wearing their ghost costumes publicly.
Having their face uncovered.
Yeah, they didn't care. Who's going to do anything? All their neighbors knew it. And this was the racial intolerance of the period. Well, are they just aiming at African Americans at this time? No. Immigrants of all types. Immigrants of all types. So this was part of it, but what is the nexus to the college? How does this equate to us?
The college did a minstrel skit in 1927. Those two gentlemen, Don and Jack, put it on, and as you can see, Jack is doing blackface for that. Fortunately, Muskegon continued and progressed out of this. By 1936, we did have our first black graduate here at Muskegon Junior College. He is circled in the pink over there. His name is Virgil Cannabis. And he was active. He was part of clubs.
Played on basketball team, did a lot of things. Very well beloved by the student body because he appeared in the Bay Window newspaper in
He did.
several articles.
Yes.
But they always prefaced, unfortunately, that he was a black student. Well, 1929, stock market crashes, and the economy starts to unravel throughout the early 1930s. Unemployment in Muskegon soared to between 30 and 40%. We don't have very strong numbers on it because you didn't apply for unemployment insurance. We only could guess by the fact of how many people were being laid off at different concerns throughout town. Well, with the collapse of the economy, there is impact on the college, clearly. And what's the impact?
Teachers got less pay. As part of the Muskegon public school system, across the board, teachers were getting less pay. On the bright side, our enrollment stayed pretty much even throughout the beginning years of the Depression. There was only one time where it dipped, and that was in 1933, where it dipped down to 165, but the next year it rose back up to 235.
So how did they afford college even in these desperate times? They had a revolving loan fund. The college, through its roof raisers and fundraising activity, used to borrow money to the students under the understanding they had a short period of time to repay it. Now, how much was tuition?
For the residents of the city of Muskegon, it was $25 per semester.
$25, which is pretty lofty money because your average wages are under $2 at the top end. So this is a lot of strain, but they were funding it. So, for example, I would give John a loan, John would repay back, and then I would give Kelly the next allotment, and that's how we kept going, and that's how it worked. Well, that worked real well until the bank that we put our money into in 1932 collapsed, and we lost the entire revolving loan fund.
Well, with the increase of both students at the junior college, there was also an increase at the public school system as well. And in 1930, they moved from using the high school's library to the Hackley Library. Our library was on the third floor of Hackley. You can still see the original brickwork down on the third floor. There is a section, and you can see what it looked like when our students went there. But in 1932, the superintendent of Muskegon Public Schools said we had to leave. They had too many students at the senior high school, and they needed the space in the third floor to house those students. And due to that, in 1934, we moved buildings to the Hackley Administration Building, which is located across from Hackley Square in downtown Muskegon.
We're getting everybody's hand-me-downs.
Everyone's hand-me-downs.
That's going to be a long time coming. So Hackley Building was, at one time, was the high school for Muskegon.
Yes.
Before, they built a dedicated building. Everybody recognizes it. There it is on your right-hand side. Mm-hmm. And then on the left, what is that?
That is the art gallery before the renovations took place. So that's what our students would have seen. And it's right next to the Hackley Public Library, as you can kind of see in the corner. Oops. Here.
But this presents challenges, doesn't it?
It does. So we originally were at the Muskegon High School, and that green space right above it is all the sports fields that we are still using for our sports teams. And we moved up to Hackley Square. Up here, there's the Muskegon Art Gallery just down the street.
So we're spreading out. And how are people getting to school?
They're walking. Not many people had cars. So if you did have a friend who had a car, you carpool with them, but most people were walking to and from their homes, to and from the different buildings. If you had a bicycle, you would be biking.
So parking is in short supply if you did have a car.
Yes.
Well, what's this iconic looking building? I don't recognize this one.
This is the Hackley Nursing School and Hospital. It is where Hackley Hospital is now, or was, and now it's the Hackley Middle School. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
But this was the original hospital and nursing school that was on site. We did a co-op program with the Hackley Nursing School where their students took their first year at the junior college getting their basics done. So their English, their math, their chemistry, anatomy and physiology all took place at the college before they transferred and finished up their degree at the Hackley Nursing School. This wasn't the only co-op program that we had. We also had an engineering co-op program with local other colleges around, including University of Michigan. But then we also had a flight training school.
Late 30s, we were training people to be pilots. And this is going to kind of unveil the next chapter for us.
Do you know where the flight school was, George?
Well, if you know where Rank is today, the airport was across the street. One little strip. One little strip. One little strip. Oh, what a motley crew this is. Hirohito, Hitler, and Mussolini, the faces of totalitarianism and fascism, rising in the 1930s, menacing Europe, Asia, and later on Africa. How are our students reacting to this? How is our community reacting to this? Well, America First movement was alive and well in Muskegon, and many of our students were part of it. They sought to be isolationists. Let's keep ourselves out of the world's mess. Now, to identify with this America First, this wasn't just some little crackpots that just decided to do this. These were some of the prominent leaders, citizens of the 30s, people like Charles Lindbergh, Henry Ford, Brigadier General Robert Wood, who was the CEO at that time of the largest department store chain, Sears. And there was a Catholic priest on the east side of the state, Father Charles Coughlin, who would go on the radio every Sunday and rally about a whole lot of other things. Some of it was pretty anti-Semitic, but he was being followed pretty religiously, not only by his flock, but by people that would tune in every Sunday to hear his addresses. And this was the face of the America First movement.
So our students, specifically our student newspaper here, had a column called As Jay Hears It. People know Jay is our mascot here. So of course, Jay is gonna ask the questions. So the first one, as you can see, took place in March 1941. And their question was, do you think that the US involvement in the European war is inevitable? Majority of the students, it was actually mixed for this. Some of them said yes, because we were already involved in it with the Lend-Lease Act that the US had signed. Other ones were no. A few months later in May, they asked, if a draft was enacted, should women serve? That is an age-old question that still comes up today. But the majority of students then said no. And if they did, they should be nurses or in the administration area, i.e. secretaries. And finally, 6 months before the inevitable in 1941, they were asked, do you favor our entrance into the war? Majority of our students said no. They did not want to go to war. They didn't want to get involved in Europe. That is there. It's across the ocean. They didn't want to be there. They didn't want to be involved. Well, what were the students doing then? They weren't going to get involved in the war across the ocean. What were they doing? They were doing dances. They were still doing concerts, chorus, orchestra. They were still doing plays. They still had their clubs they were involved in, men's and women's unions still. A new club, international relations, came about. Debate came about. We also had a rifle club. Our theater club, Shouts and Murmurs, continued. They also did a movie tone news film in which the students took a film recorder and recorded what daily life was, and this would have been shown in local theaters in Muskegon, so people got to see what our college students doing in their daily lives.
Wow, we have a budding group of Cecil DeMills there putting together movies or something, I don't know. And the movie tone reels played before the big films. Remember, nobody has it, there's no TV. You either had a radio set, which was an AM radio in your house, which was like state of the art. It's like your big screen TV at the time. Or you went to the movies, you paid nickel, dime, and you saw big feature, and then you saw newsreels that kind of caught you up on the events that were happening around the world.
And as you can see through these pictures, college students are still college students. They did the same thing back then that students today are doing. The one difference that I have noticed, they were dressed extremely well.
Yeah, no oil change clothes, no obscene T-shirts,
No PJs.
no ripped out jeans.
No sweatpants.
Yeah.
Women are in skirts. Men are in just shirts
You
and
mean
ties.
flannel pajamas wasn't the time?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. And students are students. They hammed it up too, even though they aren't doing selfies because they don't have that technology.
Our athletics was still taking place. They did add golf, of course, but they also added women's basketball. So we did have a women's basketball team in the late 1930s.
Well, I saw a name, Coach Rode. Who is that?
Our gym's named after him.
Oh, member of the faculty and the gym coach.
He was a coach for almost every single men's sport that was here. He was cross country, he was mainly basketball, tennis, you name it, he was pretty much involved in it, including baseball.
I think that picture pretty much typifies what Pearl Harbor was about. That event changed everything for students, the nation, and what was to come in the 1940s.
So almost 2 months later, the military came on campus and the men registered for service. Students that stayed, mainly the women, wrote to active service members either at any overseas, be it in the Pacific or in Europe, or at any of their locations in the US. They also were actively involved in the Red Cross relief, raising money, doing book sales, doing basic first aid, learning basic first aid. They also were part of that conserving of the lights, fuel, paper, anything that they could do to help the war effort they were doing. They also were selling war bonds, which President Albright was in charge of. So there he is, helping the community out. The gentleman you see there, first in the top, as an aviation cadet, he did go through our aviation program here, is Burton Henry. He is a 1942 graduate of MCC.
And he became an officer. The aviation program produced a large number of second lieutenants who were pilots. And we're going to show you in just one second. That often put them in harm's way because they're on the front lines in planes. They're a target.
This plaque was donated by the Men's Union on November 11th, 1950. It is located in the stairwell just outside the Welcome Center as you go down. That landing right there where all the veteran areas and information is, this plaque is also there.
But look at the number of names of people that died and their ranks. Lieutenant, 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 lieutenant. Because they were part of that aviation program and they got commissioned either as Navy aviators, or the one we saw was a picture of a Marine Corps aviator, or an Army aviator. So we had people that could handle these planes, and it was kind of a leg up. It means you're not going to be in the infantry, you're going to be flying. But with flying comes greater danger.
So what about the class? What happens with enrollment? Well, 6 months before Pearl Harbor, we had 49 graduates, mixture of men and women. By the middle of the war, in June 1943, we only had 36 graduates. 19 would have graduated if they stayed in school. 17 went into the armed forces, and 2 women went to become engineering cadets. And by the end of the war, June 1945, there was only 14 graduates at MJC, including, from what information I have, the first African-American woman, Louise White, and you can see her down in the left corner of the program.
But Emily, we'd be remiss not to tell the audience what is changing in Muskegon. World War II changed Muskegon forever. We became one of the 5 fastest growing cities in the United States because of our wartime industries, because of our foundries, our Continental Motor Plant, etc. So it also required more labor. And this is the time we began to see the great influx of African Americans to Muskegon, primarily coming from several locations in Mississippi and Arkansas. They were recruited in. Males were recruited in for foundry jobs, which would not be suitable for Rosie the Riveter types, which are also, we're seeing more and more women going into the workforce during this same period of time. So our city is exploding. 4 hospitals, a population that was estimated by the census people to be around 80,000 people. Does anybody know what the population of Muskegon is today, the city of Muskegon? 36 or 37,000. So you could see that this just blew things up. Where do you put all these people? What do you do with all these folks? It presented lots of challenges.
So what did our students do post-war? Well, we had a lot of GIs coming back from the war. And thanks to the GI Bill, a lot of them enrolled in Muskegon Junior College. The first year after the war, we had 621 students enrolled. The ratio for women was great. We got a choice of any man we wanted, as long as they weren't married. Which, with the men coming in back from the war, they probably were. But 1 female to about 3 males.
Well, go ahead, yeah. What can I say? You know, it's a woman's world.
The only other thing I can think of, you can equal it to those who go to Michigan Tech, where it's about the same. So if you want a guy, go to Michigan Tech if you're a girl.
Well, 1951, what happened to us?
The Michigan legislation changed our name to what we know it today as Muskegon Community College.
And that was due to the broadening of the curriculum. We have to have programs to address vocational and technical education. So the idea of community college, an access point, not only for college prep, but also for trade and vocational programs.
With the influx of students after the war, student activities also began to expand. We had new clubs forming and new sports. The three men you see there are 1948 graduates of MCC, and they used the GI Bill to do it. The top one, who's in the Navy uniform, is Lee Tetchison. The guy in the middle is unknown. He could be several different graduates. Keep an idea of what our graduates looked like. I cannot figure out who he is. And then the bottom is Robert Hartman. As you can see, those clubs expanded. We had the Business Administration Club, which is the oldest club here on campus. It is still around today, and it started in the late 1940s. We also had the German Club, Publications, Camera, Spanish, another one that is still going strong today, and Pre-Professionals and Interreligious Discussion Group, just to name a few.
Boy, they all look bright and well dressed. Maybe they just dressed up for photograph day.
I don't know, the one on the far side near you, they're still all goofing off, and most of them still seem pretty well dressed.
Yeah. Different times, wasn't it?
Different times. Of course, sports also continued. They added new ones, including bowling and track. And then, of course, continued the ones that we've always had, basketball, tennis, baseball. One good thing that also took place during this time for our sports people is that our men's basketball won the state championship in 1945-46 school year, and the men's tennis won state championship in 1947. Now, they're only state champions because there's not a National Junior College Association for athletics yet. So we've had a winning teams only 20 years after inception. Now, our faculty, with the influx of students, also expanded. You can see, 1938, we don't have that many. And mainly they were men. There are 2 women in that photo. And those 2 women are secretaries. They're not even faculty. On the left, that's our faculty and staff from 1950. An explosion that took place of both women and the faculty. This is due to, as George said, the addition of courses and vocational programs that came to MCC.
But more diverse, more females in teaching positions. So we're also seeing a larger number of faculty in response to our rising enrollments. Look at these brand spanking new kids. Well, this is part of the vocational thrust, getting our students out into the world of employment. These young men, mostly young men, I don't see any women in the crowd, were kind of auditioning for jobs at Continental Motors. Not assembly jobs, but probably engineering jobs, etc. So the idea of community college being a ladder to better lives. Very much obvious in the 1950s. And that idea of taking what you learn and applying it to the workplace.
As we continue into the 1950s, things are pretty quiet. Life just continues for the students. They have dances, they go to school, they have teas, they're participating in clubs, but it's pretty basic, very even keel across the 1950s. The one thing I notice is that their dress has become more casual. They're no longer in suit and ties. They're not in long dresses. They're more casual.
And the hairstyles changed too, which is kind of interesting. And I'm sure those folding chairs, we have them here. I sat on one at faculty seminar days. My back is still screaming.
By 1957, the population of students here cannot be contained at the Hackley Administration Building anymore. We added the Wilson School, which was the old Ursuline Convent building. This building was used mainly for the chemistry and engineering classes.
And it was a fire hazard. We have reports from the fire marshals that they entered in looking for the way we stored chemicals, and they were like appalled. But they never ticketed us for any reason. I don't know why. They just wrote it up as like, you guys shouldn't be doing this, you know? It was a powder keg. What happened to this building?
Well, that powder keg kind of went after we left the building, and it did burn down. By 1960, we added the Vanderlaan School, mainly for administrative offices, but also for courses as well.
So where are these places, you know?
We are spread out throughout the city of Muskegon at this time. There is no central campus. We are all over. The Jean Baptist Catholic Church you see down here, right next door would have been the Wilson School. And we're still using the sports youth facilities at the senior high school for our sports teams. Hackley Square, the Hackley Administration Building. Muskegon Museum of Art, of course, is the Hackley Library. We're still using the art gallery as courses as well. And then up in that upper right-hand corner, that Myrtle Avenue is where Vanderlaan was located. That building is also no longer there.
How the heck did they get around? Because I'm sure the bus system was not robust like it is today. Oh, I'm sorry, it isn't robust. Okay, how did they get along? How did they get around?
Once again, our students are walking. Not many of them had cars, and if they did, they were carpooling, or they're riding their bikes. Any form of transportation our students could find is what they did.
Well, they also double parked, which was much to our shock. They would pull up to these buildings, they'd park their cars, they'd leave the keys in there, and it was an unwritten rule. Whoever had the space at the curb, if their class was over, they had to move the car that parked them in, and they had to park their car in their space. Now, I don't know about you. How many of you are leaving your car keys in your car for your neighbor to park your car? You do? Well, you're a very trusting person, sir. I don't. You must have good neighbors, because I'm scared of even leaving anything in my car, let alone letting anybody move my car. Come on. And we're talking parallel parking. We're not talking diagonal parking. So that's a little challenge.
The students made fun of this parking as well. There are comics in the bay window where students are like, you can tell where the faculty park because it's all Model Ts. So they are making fun of parking mainly because there isn't any. And faculty and staff are allowed and get the premier parking spots in the parking spaces. This slide shows what our head count was at our inception. I know it says 106. That's how many people registered, but only 62 attended. All the way up, you can see a gradual.
Well, and you have to take into account it's 2 semesters.
That's it. As you can see, it gradually goes up until 1940, and then the war took place. And there's a huge jump in 1946 with the GI, but then it drops in 1950.
Well, why would it drop?
The Korean War took place. So those who didn't serve in World War II are being drafted, or did serve, are now either reserving or being drafted to fight in Korea. By 1956, we're back up to what we were in 1946.
But we have no home that's our home. No home that's our home. We're using everybody else's cast-offs. Public schools, the Catholic Church, whatever we could find. Any port in a storm.
Our tuition is based off of semesters, not by courses, not by credits, but by semesters. It stays pretty even through 1940, $20, $25 per semester. This was only for residents of the city of Muskegon. Those who live outside of it are paying more.
What was the average course load again for a student, a full-time student?
18 credits.
18 credits, because you had to finish in 2 years. There was none of this, 25-year plan.
By 1946, the tuition does jump up to $75 per semester, thanks to the U.S. government and the GI Bill. MCC decided we need a little more of that cut, so they raised it. It stays pretty even, only jumping another $25 to $100 by 1956.
And some of this is due to inflation. After the war, there was, prices went up. Clearly, we could see that in newspapers, ads and stuff. And we're just part of a bigger picture. Colleges mirror the economy. But nonetheless, you see that there's large periods of time where tuition is flat. So students could kind of plan ahead. They didn't have to worry about, well, what is tuition next year? Is it going to be up 5%, 4%, 7%? They kind of knew what to anticipate.
Who are these guys? I'm sure some of you recognize the guy on the left. Harry Morgan, played in MASH and Dragnet, but that wasn't his name when he attended MCC. His name was Harry Bratsburg. He attended 1 year here. He was part of the debate team, and this debate team debated Oxford University when they were doing their tour of the United States. The Oxford students were greatly impressed by our students and by our community college. We are the only community college that they debated when they toured the U.S.
And the other person, Elmer Anderson, would later become governor of Minnesota. But why is he in Minnesota if he's from Muskegon, Michigan? Well, he came to Muskegon as part of a family that was kind of fractured. His mother had been divorced. He and his brothers came here. He finished community college or junior college. He opened a real estate company in Muskegon and an insurance company right out of JC. After that, then he went to work for the H.B. Fuller Adhesives Company in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Spent 20-some years as a person climbing the corporate ladder, got into corporate leadership, and then decided to dabble his toe into politics. He was a liberal Republican and defended staunchly the rights of unions in Minnesota to organize and to carry on. And he was alive all the way up to 2004.
Our next lecture will be November 18th in the Overbrook Theater. It will cover the longest range, the next 40 years of our history from 1960 to 1966.
We have some nuggets. A 16-minute film on how the campus was made from Alden Dow. And we just made contact. You want to tell them who called us the other day?
Thanks to Bruce, who works.
Bruce Duff.
Duff, thank you. I couldn't remember his last name. Whose uncle helped build this campus. He got us in touch with Bill Gilmore, who actually designed this campus. It took him a year to design it. He is still alive. He is 93 years old and lives up in Marquette, Michigan. And we are hoping to get up there within the next month or so to interview him.
So, mark your calendars, come back. It only gets better. You may be in the next one.
There will be more pictures and stuff that students got up on campus. You'd be shocked on what they actually did.